If you've ever wondered how to raise capital, today's guest is an expert in that field.
Plus, make sure to stay right till the end because he's going to give you a copy of his free book. I'm Mel.
I'm Dave.
And we're the Investor Couple.
Very excited about today's episode. We've got a guest, Jay Conner. Today, Jay's going to be talking about the secret sauce to raising capital. He's going to talk about how he structures the deal for security-wise. And then number 3, he's going to talk about how to raise money without even asking for money.
And if you don't know who we are yet, Dave and I have purchased over 250 units using creative financing and without joint venture partners. And we're investing in 5 countries: Canada, US, Mexico, Dominican Republic, and Costa Rica.
And if you're new to our channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to get notified. We release a video every single week.
Make sure to stay right till the end because you don't want to miss out on so many great tips that Jay's going to be sharing. Let's get started.
All right, so we wanted to welcome our guest today, Jay Conner, known as the private money guy, which we happen to be in masterminds together. We've had the pleasure of meeting in Tampa in September. So yeah, Jay, welcome to our show. Welcome to our audience.
Happy to have you here today. I know you're going to provide so much value to everybody.
Dave and Mel, I'm so excited to be here on your show, and that's because we're going to be talking about my favorite subject in real estate investing, which is private money. And why is it my favorite subject? Because private money's had more of an impact on our real estate investing business than any other strategy that we've ever done.
I agree. Private money has been a game changer in our portfolio, and by the sounds of it, your portfolio and the people that you help. So couldn't agree with you more, Jay. That's a great way to open up the conversation. But yeah, tell us more, tell our audience so they get to know you a little bit more. But who is Jay Conner?
Right. Well, my wife, her name's Carol Joy. She's originally from Texas. We live here in eastern North Carolina, which is my hometown when I grew up. We're in a really, really small town. It's called Morehead City, North Carolina. And Morehead City's only got 8,000 people in it. Our total target market, and we've been full-time in real estate investing since 2003, but our total target market is only 40,000 people here in eastern North Carolina, which is a really, really small market. Now, we do 2 to 3 deals a month. In this market, we're flipping most of them. Our average profit right now per transaction is $82,000 per house, per deal we're doing. And I don't say that to brag at all. I say that to make a point. And that is, you don't have to be in a big market to really make significant income. And if you can make $82,000 a deal, you don't need to do that many deals, you know.
Well, you just got all the audiences tuned in, listening to you saying, wow, that's amazing. I'm excited. I'm living in a small market, or one investment returns are best. So, I mean, that's not little money. That's life-changing, right? Once you
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, there's a strong argument to be made to invest in the outlying areas, not in like the middle of the big city where you've got all that competition. So, you know, for like in our circumstance, we are a big fish in a very, very small pond. Not many other, you know, full-time real estate investors that I even know of here in the area. But my background as to how we got involved with private money, the first 6 years that we were investing here, and this is where we've been investing all these years, from 2003 until 2009, January 2009 to be exact, I relied on the local banks to fund my deals. I never heard of your expertise back then, those first 6 years of creative financing and subject to and seller financing. And I never heard of wholesaling. I never heard of private money. I had never heard of self-directed IRAs and how people can take their retirement funds and actually be a passive real estate investor and be a private lender to us real estate investors. I hadn't heard of any of that. All I knew to do was to go to the local bank, get on my hands and knees and put my hands underneath my chin and say, please fund my deal. Please fund my deal. And, you know, give my tax returns and verification of income and W-2s and all that jazz. So January 2009, everything changed like immediately. Now, where you all live, you may not have any longer what these things we call handsets with cords attached to them. That's actually you have cell phones, right? Well, we actually still have landlines here in North Carolina. Anyway, I was sitting here at my desk, January 2009, and I called up my banker. His name was Steve, and Steve had funded a lot of my deals. I mean, all of my deals, to tell you the truth, from 2003 to 2009. Well, I had 2 houses under contract in January 2009. I called up Steve. We had a little chit chat. I told him about the 2 properties. They represented over $100,000 in profit just between those two deals. And I told them the funding required for the deals. Well, I learned like that over the telephone that my line of credit had been shut down, no notice. And, my first thought was, I wish somebody had told me, like Steve at the bank, that my line of credit had been shut down anyway. So I said, Steve, what do you mean my line of credit's been shut down? I got a great credit score. We've done a ton of deals in 6 years. Why is my line of credit closed with no notice? He said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, but now you just gave me a global financial crisis because now I can't fund these two deals and I was relying on you to fund them. He says, well, sorry, we're not loaning out money to real estate investors. So I hung up the phone and I asked myself a very, very important question. I asked myself, I said, Jay, who do you know that can help you with your problem? And by the way, these people are running around saying every problem's an opportunity. I want to throw up. I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem. I didn't have a way to fund my deal, right? Yeah. So immediately when I asked myself that question, I thought of Jeff Blankenship, who lived in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time, good friend of ours through church, through singing events and stuff. And I called him up and I told him what had happened. He said, well, welcome to the club. I said, what club? He said, the club of being shut down at the bank. They shut me down last week. I said, well, how are you going to fund your deals? And he says, well, have you heard of private money? I said, no. He said, have you heard of self-directed IRAs and how people can use retirement funds to lend money out as a private lender to real estate investors, either tax deferred or tax free? I said, for goodness sakes, no. So I hung on the phone with Jeff and I studied private money. Now, by the way, let's be clear. I'm not talking hard money. By the way, I got some great friends, and you all do too, that are hard money lenders. But I'm not talking hard money in this conversation. I'm talking about borrowing money from individuals just like you and me from either their investment capital or their retirement funds. So I put my private money program together. What's my private money program? It's like, what am I going to offer individuals, potential private lenders, to be a private lender with us? And so I put my program together. What interest rate am I going to offer? What's my terms going to be? Frequency of payments, etc. So I put that together. I learned about self-directed IRAs. I established a relationship with a self-directed IRA company that when people have retirement funds, I could refer them to them. So here's what I did. Did you know that in less than 90 days, I was able to attract and raise $2,150,000 in new private money funding? And you know what? Here's what's really interesting about it. I didn't ask anybody for money. In fact, since I started raising private money, I've never asked anybody for money. We got 47 private lenders right now that are funding our deals, and we'll have a bunch of projects going on. And people ask me all the time, they say, Jay, how in the world do you raise millions of private money and you never ask anybody for money? Well, here's the secret sauce, and then I'm going to turn it back over to you all. The first thing I did was put on my teacher hat, which says private money teacher. And so I didn't pitch any deals. In fact, I've never pitched a deal in all these years. So what did I do first? And here's the secret. I separate the conversation of teaching the private lending program and how people can earn high rates of return safely and securely and the kind of returns they're going to get. I separate that conversation with offering them any kind of a deal to fund because desperation's got a smell to it. Yeah. And if I'm talking about a deal and my private lending program, what I'm going to offer, I already sound desperate and I'm not even trying to. So first, I teach the program. I'll do that at a private lender luncheon and have 15 or 20 people there or just one-on-one. And I don't have to ask them. They tell me how much they've got at the end of that conversation, if it's an investment capital, is it retirement funds, etc. And I say, well, hey, I've got X number of dollars I'd like for you to put to work. I said, okay, I will give you a call probably within the next couple of weeks, at the most 30 days, and I'll have a deal for you to fund and I'll put your money to work. So we end that conversation. Now, the second part of that is I call them up with what I call the good news phone call. So I call them up and let's say, oh shoot, Mel, let's say you're one of my new private lenders and let's say you have said, I've got $150,000 that you'd like to get those kind of returns on. So I'll call you up. We'll have a little chit chat. And I'll say, Mel, I've got good news for you. I can now put your $150,000 to work. I've got a house in Newport under contract with an after repaired value of $200,000. The funding required is $150,000, and closing is going to be next Wednesday. So you'll need to have your funds wired to my real estate attorney by next Tuesday. I want to have my attorney email you the wiring instructions. End of conversation. Notice I did not ask you if you wanted to fund the deal. Of course you wanted to fund the deal. You've been waiting for the good news phone call, and particularly if you have moved your retirement funds or a portion of them over to a self-directed IRA, you're not making any money on that money, and I'm ethically bound to put your money to work because you moved it over to a self-directed IRA company that I recommended you move it to. So again, it's all about leading with a servant's heart. It's all about educating. We're not selling, persuading, chasing, or trying to talk anybody into anything. Instead of asking for a mortgage or mortgages, we're offering mortgages.